Albert is an impressive all-around individual. He's a husband, father, and entrepreneur. From running track and field at the University of Florida to getting his master's in human performance, becoming a registered dietitian, starting a gym, starting Promix 14 years ago, and ultimately exiting last year. He's one of the most dialed-in entrepreneurs that I've seen. My favorite part is his clear obsession over product.
I want to make protein. Like, how do I make a protein? What does the research say is the right amount to have in? Because a lot of this space is just marketing.
And how that's been core to the success Promix has had to this day. This combo was epic. I hope you enjoy the show. What is going on, everybody? I'm your host, Sean Schraub. Welcome to the JNS Capital Show. Today, we are in Austin, Texas with a very special guest, especially for my fellow Gainesville people. Now, although Albert and I just met about 6-7 months ago, we had some crossover in our early school days in Gainesville by a handful of years. But man, I'm excited to talk shop. Albert Matheny, everybody. Albert, welcome, man.
Thanks, John. It's good to be here.
So, okay, in this show, we're not going to be spending too much time going into the background of our impressive guest, but we will take a few minutes to share a background for everyone, especially this journey that you've had, which has honestly been exciting to hear about and super inspiring. So, first off, congrats to you and your wife on the recent child, the
Thanks,
first one, correct?
Yep.
So I know you were obviously born and raised in Gainesville. Did you grow up with any siblings, or was it just you?
No, just me.
Just you. And what'd your parents do for work, or mom and dad?
Dad was a professor at University of Florida, political science, environmental law, and then mom was mostly at home, did some side stuff occasionally, but pretty good life.
Yeah, grew up in the like education, like academia parent background.
Yep.
I get that. My mom was a physician, so
Yeah.
totally get it. Is there a story that comes to mind from a young age that you think like really influenced your entrepreneurial kind of journey and success?
Yeah. I think like in Gainesville, like you spoke about your mom, like basically the top of Gainesville is basically doctor, lawyer, like traditional stuff. And so you don't see too much business. For me, I wrote a paper in high school about Dr. Cade, who made Gatorade. Mm-hmm. That was kind of, you had the Gators, Gatorade, those are like the biggest things out of Gainesville. And so that was always kind of like interesting to me, just that something from Gainesville could get to be known in a big way. Yeah. And you could see like through sports, like how people really got to like that next level. So for me, Gatorade and that story of that coming from Gainesville was always big for me. Yeah. As like inspiring.
Yeah, that was always, I feel like anytime I talk about Gainesville, it's either I have to reference like University of Florida or like Gatorade. Right? Yeah. Okay, so I understand you stayed in Gainesville. I'm assuming you got a scholarship for track and field at UF. And what was your main event, by the way, when you were?
1,500 mile, 2 mile steeplechase distance. So I was like a walk on. So I had an academic scholarship.
Nice.
But definitely not the fastest guy, but I made the team. So
yeah,
there you go.
What was PR?
For me, like I only got to run a couple miles, but I did a 4:14 indoor, which is usually like the most impressive for people who don't run too much. Mm-hmm. So
that's killer.
Yeah.
And so okay, I was kind of looking through your journey. So I think your first year you started 2004, right? At UF.
Yep.
And educational journey was about 6 years. First, bachelor's of exercise physiology and kinesiology, which I think you started down that pre-med route.
Yep.
Right. Then you got a bachelor's in food science and human nutrition. After did you do them in tandem?
I did my master's and my second bachelor's at the same time.
Got it. The master's of science in human performance. Yeah. Right. And then you also are a registered dietitian.
Yep.
And a certified strength and conditioning specialist. Were these like, did you just enjoy the learning, the schooling, or what kind of caused all these to get all of these?
Yeah, pretty much. I had a 5th year of eligibility. I had some injuries in college, which were like important for me to kind of go through, like understanding the healthcare system, understanding nutrition and all that. But basically had one more year of track, was trying to figure out if I wanted to do a master's, PhD or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like I was still kind of on that, what do you do with academics? Mm-hmm. That was kind of my mindset. And then basically did some rotations in hospitals, realized I didn't want to work in the hospital system. And like being an orthopedic surgeon is cool. I still think that's cool. But like I would be kind of just starting my career now. Yeah. Like literally, it's like 8 year, undergrad, med school, specialization for 4, 6, 10, like it's a really long road.
Yeah.
And so that didn't make sense to me. And then, so I just got more interested in the nutrition side. And so I just, at the same time doing the master's, did the second bachelor's and the registered dietitian courses. So that part became learning how to like honestly check boxes. And part of that was like, okay, what is my brand in the future? I did start to think about that, and I needed to have like the credibility of the master's in science helped initially, but then also the registered dietitian. Like if you're talking to people, like I was originally, I don't think the entrepreneurial space was as open as it is now at all. And so it was a bit more like the people in the space. Like I just the other day was talking to the co-founder of Primal Kitchen. So Mark Sisson was like a guy who had Primal Kitchen, that business sold, but he was kind of in that era of you had to come from like a science background to make a supplement. Or nowadays it's like vibe and like social like builds brands. But like back then it was like, oh, you're like someone who blogs on the internet or writes about nutrition or is like has some kind of link where people are like, oh, this person has like credibility. Maybe you've written a book. My dad written a book. So that was, I worked with the framework that I knew about how to build a brand at that time. And so for me, I was like, I'm going to be an athlete. I looked at I got recruited in the USA Triathlon. So I was like, played out. I think like part of this learning process for me was, for a lot of people, you figure out if I did the best I could with this track, do I end up somewhere I want to be? And you realize that you don't. Like I had a friend that, we were close in college. He ended up winning an Olympic gold medal. Oh wow! Which is unbelievable. But like, there isn't what happens after that. There's nothing that happens after that for most people, unless you're literally like Michael Phelps and that's your your platform and career. But if you're there's a lot of people who win medals, but that's like the pinnacle of what you can do. So for me, it was like I could be a very good triathlete, but that doesn't. There's no like you don't do anything with that. And so I started to just think about, okay, sports are no longer my number one. I got to turn it into business. And once I flipped that switch in my head from I care more about training than school to I care about business in school and just being around people that started to have success, that really changed like my whole mindset.
So, okay. So then take us through 2010 and kind of your first I think first gym and so on to like early Promix days.
Yeah. Earliest days were like making products for myself. I started that even before 2010. I was like using Gatorade products, wanted to try some different stuff, got tired of drinking Gatorade and stuff, honestly. And so I started to make my own drink mixes, my own bars, and
just like at home. Just throwing shit together.
Yeah. And then I've given it to some of my teammates, and then some of my other teammates were getting to be professionals at that time. I had the dietitian background, started working with them as a dietitian. One of my mentors, this guy Kyle O'Day, he's like an amazing trainer coach. Another guy, Raina Ryder, amazing coach. They were in Atlanta. So I ended up moving to Atlanta, and I was kind of involved with their like track training group. And I was doing nutrition for some of their people, and started just like, for me, throughout what I learned in nutrition and working with athletes and thing was like protein was really hard to get enough of. Like still that's the number one thing that I was a trainer for 10 years after that. And it was, people don't get enough protein. Like that's usually what's holding people back from just you're not even trying to be an athlete. You're just trying to be like healthy or aesthetically look the way you want to look. So basically was doing that. And then started to try to like formalize that business, but again, didn't have any mentors. So I was like calling SBA. I was like asking them, how do I set up like a business or an LLC or whatever. Ended up setting up, there's certain things that you do early on where you're like, it would have been good to know. But I opened up, I had a Florida S Corp that eventually was transitioned like a couple years ago. But then I just walked into there was an organic coffee roastery, Sweetwater, which I think still exists in Gainesville. This guy Tripp, I'd never met him, but I just said, hey, can I like package protein on your equipment at night? And so I set up a organic handling like certificate, had like my business like certified, and I just started packing protein, doing like local shop kind of sales, which was really small, and then selling on my website, and then eventually got to on Amazon. And that, fast forward a little bit, but like Amazon was like kind of just starting out. And so I got some early success, and like oftentimes like I didn't have a big goal for the business because I was in Gainesville. Like there was, the top again was if you're a doctor and you're making $100,000 in Gainesville at that time was fucking big.
Yeah.
And so like that was kind of I was like, if I can make $50,000 a year passively from this business, then I can do any job I want because I have this base, which is enough. And so basically Amazon started to like kind of just work on its own because it was growing. That was maybe 2015. So I was doing that for a couple of years, and I made some stops along the way, but like that was always kind of running. And then eventually just one thing led to another, and got a couple lucky, Amazon things started to happen and the business started to grow. And then I was like, oh, like this can actually, once you start hitting, I think everyone has that point in the business where that ceiling just keeps getting raised, and you're seeing numbers and you're like, it doesn't feel real. It still doesn't. Like you still look at stuff, you're like, because there's a lot of psychology that I probably read all the same stuff where it's like people's brains aren't meant to have a certain number of connections beyond what you can function with. And I think the same with monetary stuff, where at some point you're just like, it's hard to comprehend the scale that something can happen at, which is cool. Yeah. But
regardless, it's like, it can be tough to wrap your head around, but it's like it's a good thing to be tough to wrap your head around.
Totally.
And then so I mean, there's a whole story of kind of the scale and the growth and so on. We're gonna get more into the business aspect, and then really came through to an acquisition last year, which with a private equity firm where you're still CEO.
Yep.
And so I guess, what do you like today? What are you focusing on? What are you building? What are you focusing on like today?
Yeah. Promix is like the number one thing, and for us right now, we're in a cool stage where business is in a great spot. It was super healthy. I think like, the one variable I always thought about was just you can't control when someone wants to buy your business. Oftentimes, so I looked at that like they came to us. It was a good, a good team, and agreed on the numbers, and like. Has worked out so far. Like I knew we would hit our numbers after the deal. So like, it's partially like, you're like, man, like I wish I'd, held on longer. But again, like you got to know the different parts of scale, especially in like every industry is a bit different, but for like CPG, like once you cross certain thresholds, now you're in like a different ball game. And then you're like, okay, now I'm like talking to a handful of strategics, which is like a different evaluation level of the business. So now day to day is like building out the team a little bit more, looking at CFO, CEO hires, and my background, the best thing I can do for the business is make product. And so like that's always been like a big driver for us, and I think a lot of brands are different in that. Most people that succeed in this space, and this took me a lot of years to learn, and definitely attributed greatly to our success, was because I'm a product guy. That's kind of like my hammer. But understanding the marketing, distribution, top of funnel, all that side of things is what is the actual gas in the business. Like, and you saw, especially now, so many brands you can pour gas on a shitty product and it'll work. Like literally. If your gas is good and you got a lot of it, like it'll work. But then the retention of it and the uniqueness and all that stuff does come down to the product. But so for us, like, shout out to my co-founder and partner, Devin LeVake. We met through I was in New York for 10 years, and we met through fitness. But he's a great marketing guy, a great networker. And like, he was kind of our top of funnel type guy. And so you bolt him on the front and I had the back end, and then the business worked. So that's like
it's kind of a good transition. Like, would you say, is that where you really think your guys' edge is on like the product itself?
I think like we have, like, every business has like different, like what really worked, but I would say the most different thing from every other brand in the space is the product side, because I actually formulate the products. I know what's in them. We source the ingredients. I have a different framework. They taste different. All that stuff is different. What Devin does is unique, but there are a lot of people that have the ability to get attention. I would say and he would say he's got like a different brand, than most people. And it is really, he's very, very authentic. He really literally lives exactly what you see. There's nothing that he's doing that he just films what he's doing, and that's what people like. And then we have a great team. Like a big unlock was our COO, Ryan Lockwood, is like unbelievable. Matt on our Amazon team, like we had a couple good hires, and like we were talking about culture before. It's just like we just have a really high ownership culture. Very small team. When we got acquired, I think we had 8 full-time employees.
Wow.
And it's just it's that mentality. It's a little bit of the Gainesville thing. Like we're not fancy. We're like straightforward. No one thinks too much of themselves. It's more just like, let's test and figure it out. Let's work hard. Just the consistency of showing up and just like using basic common sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so maybe backtracking a little bit, like you basically started making this, making product for yourself.
Yep.
And was that because it's funny, like when I think about it, and I'm sure when people think of like, oh, Promix and health and nutrition space, like literally the first thing that comes to my head is like so overpopulated. It's like, and there's also a lot of really incredible marketing out there these days where you can package something that is not good and make it look really good. And even if it tastes good, the ingredient list isn't solid. So I feel like these days, well, I'm certain these days it's way more overpopulated than what it was back then. Like take me back to then when you were getting this going. Was the driver just like you tried a bunch of products that were out there and you just didn't like them? You didn't like the ingredient list? Like what was like the issue, I guess, that you were really focusing on solving?
There's 2 parts to that. One, like my personal issue was my mom, credit to her, she was like pretty crunchy. We'd shop at the farmer's market, that type of thing. So I would go to the farmer's market, get meat, milk, that type of thing. But then I'm like chugging Gatorade and eating a bunch of bars. Like those 2 things are very different. It's like, I know where the ingredients come from. There's basically no ingredient label. It's super clean, like all that stuff, to mass produced, super commoditized, lowest cost ingredients that you can use in products.
What bars were you eating back then? Do you remember?
Gatorade had bars.
Oh, Gatorade.
Which like, that was like what was cool about, and Cliff, which made my stomach hurt and stuff like that. So like, but there were also like that category was pretty young. That was still the age of Power Bars, Cliff Bars, like
Cliff Bars.
Cliff was like the Power Bar was the only bar.
Yeah.
Then Cliff Bar came out and everyone's like, oh wow, these don't have to be terrible. And now they've gotten a lot better. But Gatorade had bars back then, which they finally like introduced. So part of the cool part about getting it at Florida was you got access to Gatorade products that weren't like widely available. So that was kind of the like R&D side too, where I was like, oh, like there's a bunch of products that there is more science in them. Gatorade used to have, I think they still do, a Gatorade Sports Science Institute, which is kind of cool. It's like they used to legit test on athletes and like really do a lot of science, because that was the basis of the brand. So that was a big inspiration to me, was like, I'm only making products that I can like directly link to, actual scientific studies and like all that. So back then the space was not as crowded. You basically had, you still had like this, it wasn't an area I was considering, but it was, if you holistically looked at the space, you had like infomercial type products, like the same like nani juice or whatever, like crazy stuff that is schlock. Then you had kind of like aggressive GNC type brands. And then you had super crunchy brands. And so you basically had, the market was extreme kind of bodybuilding almost, like kind of hangover from kind of the golden age of like when Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that. Then you had super crunchy mom stuff that was like sprouted hemp and like, shit like that, which my mom would buy. So I got an exposure to it, and it tasted terrible. So, and those were also very different. It was like terrible taste. And then like the Arnold side of the business was kind of starting to like try to do like flavors and different things. But like the Gatorade was kind of, they weren't really in supplements, and it was like everything was, there's a lot of sugar, a lot of sweetness, a lot of flavor. And then the crunchy side had no flavor. And so I was like, the crunchy side is not going to reach a mass audience because it's too crunchy. I'm like, it's America. Like people like things that taste at least pretty good. And it was also like very niche, very expensive. Like they would go like too far to the extreme of like, literally like twigs and berries type stuff. And I'm like, no one's going to buy this product. So I wanted to like find this huge middle ground. And I started to see that rise of like brands like RX Bar and stuff were kind of like very early days there, where like there's this new consumer emerging that was like willing to spend a little bit more on a better product, because like CrossFit really brought the paleo ideas. That's again like Mark Sisson, Primal Kitchen, like all those guys were starting to be like, what is in our food?
Yeah.
And like, let's like think about that, before it was just like no one knew anything. And so my goal was use premium ingredients, but don't go so premium that I'm only catering to the 1%. So I want at least 40% of the population that could buy the product. So they are going to say, I'm investing in my health, and then they're also going to say, it tastes good, but like, it's not super sweet or crazy.
Yeah.
And for us, part of that, I like when people say like, it's good, but it like tastes healthy.
Yeah.
So like, you kind of know it's good for you,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you're like, if something tastes amazing, you're like, all right, well, like what's the catch
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
Or like, which is fine. You can eat ice cream. Like I eat ice cream, but like when you're having stuff that's meant to be like supplement, like, or healthy or whatever, like you should at least like probably be healthy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like very basic, but that was really, so there was a big gap for me in the market of nutrition products that were well sourced, like ingredient story, tasted pretty good, and were not crazy expensive. And so that was like that gap that I saw. So it was less crowded.
And you mentioned the kind of like,
and a much smaller market.
Yeah. I'm sure that's grown like insane.
The market's crazy.
The customer, you mentioned the customer base, like so was that, I guess, what was the goal of who your customer base would be, and who is it actually today?
Yeah. Back then it was kind of that, I looked at it as I would grab some people from the crunchy side. I would grab some people from like the kind of bodybuilding side that were looking for that. So I would like grab those edges. And then I thought the main meat was kind of that emerging, what I would like archetype or whatever would be like the CrossFit person. So they're not going to a big box gym anymore. They're going to a local gym. So there's already like independent thought basically occurring. And then being like, oh, like, yeah, like maybe I'll look at my nutrition. And there started to just be, that groundswell of media around, people started to read about nutrition on their own. Like, before Instagram and all that stuff, it was blogs and different things like that, or like health books. And so that was the audience. And then now it's shifted, like we said, where there was clearly a gap in the market then. Like I did not have brands that I would really say I was competing with. To now, the biggest emergence has been, well, one, like that whole bodybuilder segment to super crunchy kind of granola mom segment is now completely filled in with healthy bros to like crunchy bros to crunchy chicks to like CrossFit chicks, like, and everything in between, where it's a whole lifestyle thing. Like it's kind of like, the biggest thing in my head that you think about is like Jennifer Aniston, Vital Proteins collagen, like that, like exploded supplements for women, especially because like women, they basically got marketed weight loss in the 80s and all that. Everything was low fat and like weight loss, basically all like kind of stimulant based products. And then with people like Jennifer Aniston, it started to be like, oh, this could be for like skin or like gut health, like started to grow words like that. So now our customer is majority female. Like it's like 60-40 female male.
Okay.
But you have this huge growing population. Women in general like spend more and think about more of, beauty, health, like all that. Guys are a little less focused on that unless they have like a specific, usually aesthetic goal that you're kind of like, oh, I want to bulk or cut or whatever it is. So that's kind of our main, we're shifting now for me early on, because of Gatorade, it was and what I grew up with, it was, and for me, sports, science, performance based. Now it's more like lifestyle, feel good, healthy, support what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. People like to buy a little bit of that, the athletic lifestyle, but like, it's just like you learn as you get older, like you're a younger guy, used to work out, I still work out, but like it used to be like, yo, if I can bench like 315, like I'm gonna get a lot of chicks, and like chicks do not care. Like, your bros probably be impressed, but like, so like there's that whole now lifestyle segment of like, I think the younger generation of guys realize that they're just like, no, like I want to be like look good and feel good and like have good vibes or whatever.
Longevity.
Yeah. Like there's, and then, yeah, that's like the longer tail, like my generation now is like, oh, longevity.
Yeah.
Like, so there's all these different words, and it's this huge, it's the entire population now, I think, is in some form or not basically in the supplement market.
Yeah.
Which it used to be very niche.
Yeah. Yeah. I even think like it's moved to such a lifestyle focused, like what are supplements, what are things that I can just have on a daily basis to just make me a healthier, a healthier human, just categorically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting to see how it's changed. So now so I understand the different customer base. What are your different revenue streams today? Like I think one of the cool things was you guys just leaned into e-com.
Yeah.
So yeah, where are those different streams?
Yeah. The main thing I saw was Amazon worked early on for the brand.
Mm-hmm.
And then D2C required you building a true brand to attract customers to your website, because there's no reason, like from a functional standpoint, why you don't buy everything on Amazon. Like you have to be drawn to the brand. Right. And so when we, with Devin coming on the social media and all that stuff that we started to do more of, that really built the D2C brand. Mm-hmm. As most people know, like in the space, the more you can build your brand off Amazon also will lift your Amazon brand, because there's just more awareness. And then, for me, even if I like a brand, like very rarely I'm going to look and see if I can buy it on Amazon first, probably. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for us, like I knew enough about the retail side of things to know that cash flow sucks, very expensive, mm-hmm. complicated, old would be like the main thing. And like I always had a mentality around not wanting to like kind of like have a regulator or like a cap on like how quickly you could grow. And I think we all grew up around the time of like, you can scale on digital and e-com and all that. And even more so now, it's, brands go 0 to 1 million very quickly sometimes. And like, so for me, it was just more about cash flow cycle, and the ease of Amazon really showed me the way around like, no, you can literally just have one person and sell millions of dollars of product because I just have to give the product to Amazon. Yeah. And like digital is so much easier to update, delete, whatever, than, I like mislabeled something and I sent 1,000 units to a retailer. Like I have to now eat all that. And that can often wreck your business. And a lot of people's businesses did get wrecked. So we really stay digital, stay lean, and you end up controlling your destiny in that way. Yeah. I think everyone's like seen those things where it's like, whoever has the cash or can write the check is in charge at the end of the day. So if you're not able to do that on your end, you're going to be asking people for money, and then you don't get to dictate terms. So for me, I've had some other business things over the years. I don't like if I can't drive the boat, like you're kind of like, shit can happen. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. And it's, now more than ever, you're seeing like, companies of 5 to 10. Like you guys can do tens of millions of dollars. Like it's,
why would you not do that?
Yeah. Right. Why don't you just dial it in? Yeah. So there's obviously, your guys like direct through your guys' site. There's Amazon. Yep. Is there any retail?
No, we do like Fair, FAIRE is just like an easy plug-in where independent retailers can basically go through, typically retail has to work through distributors, but it's a process to work through distributors. We have for certain like B2B partnerships we have, but like Fair allows independent retailers, like maybe you've got one shop or you've got a couple, to not to be able to bring in brands that aren't with a major distributor. Yep. So that's like it's a good awareness, and it's like more about like optics of where the brand is placed than like a revenue driver. Yep. But it's not insignificant, and so it's just Amazon D2C.
What's your repeat customer rate?
Obviously, like you kind of have that LTV graph, and like slowly over time, like you lose customers, but when people come in, slightly below 40% will subscribe. And then
that's the main thing you're driving them to, right? Subscribe and save. Yeah.
And I think with the
40%
average,
almost.
Yeah, average customer is like, we'll get 2.5, 3 orders from the average customer.
Got it. And what is a majority coming from DTC versus Amazon?
Majority D2C right now, but like, I'm shocked that we can have our D2C continue to stay ahead of Amazon, because Amazon is just the biggest marketplace. And like, you know, it is oftentimes for brands also more profitable, which again, everything is like in attribution and like, what do you actually attribute the spend versus the sales? So I think Amazon benefits from a lot of unaccounted for spend to make you believe that Amazon is more profitable. But, you know, a lot of that, the ads you run maybe on Meta are going to end up driving a customer to convert, but not in a way that you can directly tie to your site and they go to Amazon. Like, that's me as a customer. If I see a brand I like, I'll check it out on Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, 2-day shipping, like.
Yeah, it's hard to beat.
Okay, so how different? Talk to me on the actual product side. Like, how different is your guys' products? And you have a wide range of products and SKUs we'll get into, but how different is it than some of these other brands? Is it specific ingredients? Like, where's that difference lie?
Yeah, I'd say like my framework on product is around, like knowing where the ingredients come from and like actually purchasing them direct. And so most people, the way the supplement industry typically works, you go to someone and you say, I want to make Sean's muscle product or whatever, or like, I believe like, I think matcha is going to be huge and I want to do a matcha weight loss. I want to do like a sleep gummy or whatever. You just go to someone and they just make it for you and they just say, here you go. And you can kind of be like, well, I want like a little bit of this or a little bit of that. And they kind of go, all right, well, this is like, what do you think? And you're like, it's all right. I can market that.
More like, here's the product I want. They make it instead of like bottom up of like,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Like no one does bottom up.
Got it.
So I've always done bottom up because I didn't know any better. And there like wasn't the same infrastructure around. I was like, I want to make a protein. Like, how do I make a protein? You know, like I had to figure that out. And then I had to figure out like, well, what is for me, my background was like, what does research say is the right amount to have in? Because a lot of this space is just marketing. It's just like, I don't know, like more sounds better, you know, or like, you know, you have no idea. And so like, that's the big thing in the industry too, is just like, you know, you can put, I've got moringa and I've got zinc and I've got whatever in my product, but like the actual amount that you have really matters. Like that matters. It's kind of like a medicine where it's like, if you take like 100 milligrams of ibuprofen, that's cool. If you take 1,000, probably not so cool. Like that does matter. And like, so our brand is really like, I'm buying the ingredients, I'm creating the formula, and the formula is tied back to like research and studies and all that. And then I basically take that research and ingredients and put it in a product, and then I try to make that product taste decent, basically. And like very tight parameters around how do we make that taste good. For like sweeteners, we only use organic coconut sugar, no sweetener, or monk fruit. We don't use like xanthan gum. We don't add like mag stearate. Like there's a bunch of other kind of like just standard industry stuff where if I was a manufacturer and someone came to me, I would want to work with stuff I already had on hand.
Sure.
Like that's like, you know, efficiencies of running a business. You're like, can we just work with the ingredients we already have? Can I like slightly tweak the formula for a new customer? I'm going to use flow agents and all this other stuff, or gums, because I know that most people like their smoothie to like be nice and thick. And like if you let it sit for a little bit, like I want it to stay looking good. But most of those people, they've done what will work for what I would call like a true mass consumer, where like the mass consumers in America everyone cares about taste, but like mass is like must taste good and must look good and must whatever. And so to me, there was always a place around where like, it's kind of, you go to like, again, like a grocery store versus a farmer's market, like all the potatoes don't look the same, or all the oranges don't look the same, but you're like, they taste better, or like, I know they're healthier. And these are like, you know, everyone, I think strawberries are the one for me. Like you go to the grocery, I don't know, I haven't bought strawberries in years because they taste like shit. They don't taste like anything. Like they're fucking water, because like, again, you have like perverse incentives around, you buy strawberries based on weight. You know, you buy a pound of strawberries at the grocery store. So like if I can just plan my aquaponics to grow fatter strawberries that are just jam full of water, and I'm not looking at taste, they just need to look good on the shelf and be heavy. And that's how you sell them. Versus, so like that's like
incentivized to do it that way.
100%. So like there's that's kind of like the framework on my end of around, make a product that works, it's safe, actually has what it says it has, and we don't make crazy claims either. Like we tell you what's in it, we don't blend anything. That was always, especially, there's somewhat less brands now, but again, back to my point, this is like somewhat nuanced, but if you're going to someone and saying, I want to make Sean sleep gummy, they're like, cool, Sean, we're going to have this like magic Sean sleep blend. It's got like L-theanine and like turkey tail and like all this stuff. And it's like a blend. So if you wanted it, you're like, hey, like I'm just going to move to another co-packer now. And they're like, okay, like, do you know what's in the blend? And you're like, not really. And they're like, okay, well, we can't make this. Like, so like, yeah, they're basically hiding the formula specifics. Like there's, popular greens products and different things on the market where like, I'm like, how much is in here of these things? And I know the science side has been helpful where I can reverse engineer, I would say almost every product I see on the market to understand what's actually in it. So I can then say, okay, well, like you're buying this greens, it's $80 a month or something crazy. Like based on their nutritional panel, I know how much of the greens they're using, and 90% of that product is spirulina, which is mega cheap. And just like all the other stuff appears on the label, but is not in an amount that matters. And that's really frustrating for me because the people aren't getting the benefits they think they are.
Yeah. So do you have a list of like, do you have a list of just ingredients that you'll never touch?
Yeah.
And maybe are there situations where like, I have to imagine there's been situations where like, oh, if I do bring in this one ingredient, which I don't really love, but it will really amplify this one product and so on and so forth. Like, did you always stick to a hard line, like no on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of business is like could be a gray area, but like with the product, it was just like, my brain just is like, nope, like I can't do it. And so, I would say I'll start with try to be like, where have I given? And it's more on the side of, I like super plain things. Like I don't care if I'm like, I eat similar foods every day. Like I don't care too much about how things taste in general. Or at least I don't like things that are very sweet and all that. So like I would have, all the products we would have would be very unsweet.
So just you being the taster might not be enough.
Yeah. So I recognize like I've made products where I was like, this is good. But I know that people won't like it because it needs a little bit of sweetness. You got to give me something, and it's just like working out. It's like, I was a trainer for 10 years. Like 99% of people, if you just squat and push up and deadlift, and like you're going to be in great shape. You don't have to do anything else. There's literally nothing else you have to do. Just do that. Yeah. That's boring. And like most people don't like that. Yeah. And like most people don't care about the nuance of like the movement and all that. So it's like, let's do some like, kipping, whatever, like kettlebell goblet, like whatever. Like you try to make it a little sexier. So the product has to taste a little bit better than better than I would want. And so that's the only area we've given on where I'm like, all right, I need a little more sweetness. So let me use a little monk fruit, which I feel good about as a sweetener. And it's still going to be, I would say on average, 40% less sweet. On the other side of things, like stuff that we don't use or like what I don't compromise on is like safety is number one. So it's like, even to the point of like, I don't like to use ingredients that are going to potentially like replace, from a physiological standpoint, something that your body is naturally producing or is kind of part of a chain of like a hormonal production or anything like that. Even like a melatonin, like I don't really want to mess with that. Or like we have a sleep product coming out, I don't want to put GABA or something like that in there. I want to use like a precursor that's like basically like a natural way to like lead to greater effectiveness of like the target compound that I want to increase. So like I can use a ingredient that will lead to GABA having more effect on your system rather than directly supplementing with GABA, which may have some negative effects.
I see.
And so like I won't ever give anyone anything where if you took it every day, it's going to become a problem.
Yeah, because then your body would become used to it, that coming from that supplement.
Yeah, or even stuff like dosages where it's like, I want it to be effective, but I'm never going to push it too hard because like sometimes people are stupid. I don't want them to like be like, let me do like 3 of these. And I'm like, I like, so there's always that limit on it. And then otherwise it's like, my big goal is always like get people healthier. And that's why I was a trainer, but you realize you can't get everyone to work out, but everyone's got to eat. I always have that parallel of like, man, I didn't have time to do it. I'm like, bro, everyone, that, like people that are successful in business know that you always have time, because it's like,
Yes.
oh, did you drink water today?
Yeah.
Take a shit?
Yeah.
Like, you did have time. You just chose to like have water.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be like that. So like,
I have a funny quick story on this. Every time people bring that up to me, I'm like, well, you didn't make time.
Yeah.
And actually, there's this one terrible, my wife will laugh at this, like, bad day. She was in a bad mood, and like, work was busy, and she's like, I haven't worked out. Like, I haven't had time to work out. And I was like, well, you haven't made time to work out. And she like started crying. It was a bad time for me to bring that up. But I digress. But it is so true of like, if it's a priority, like, you'll make time for it. Like, you just will.
yeah, especially nowadays, like, check your screen time. Everyone can just look at whatever social time that you think, there's work you can do on there, but it's like, you definitely had time to do literally whatever you wanted. Yeah. And like, workouts can be 20 minutes and that's still a workout. But so like, ingredients we don't use are like, I really did want people healthier. So I wanted to get people off really intense sweeteners is my biggest one. And then also I would say around like stuff that I know is for sure not ideal for your gut health, because I think a lot of people, if you don't eat healthy, you actually, for me early on, I would drink Coke and do all this stuff. And like, I didn't know I didn't feel good. Like, I just thought, well, after I have a meal, you just get tired. I thought that's what happened.
Yeah.
But I had, till I was like 12,
Yeah.
I would just like have a Smoothie King, eat a Chipotle, eat some like sushi, like all this crazy stuff. And then I would just be like, God, I'm so tired.
I gotta lay on the couch.
And then I lay on the couch and watch football for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
But then I realized like, yo, that's like not good.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to feel like that. And so for me, like, getting people to realize that. So if like you have a protein, they're like, oh yeah, I just like always like kind of gassy after I have protein. I'm like, you don't have to be like that. That's just from like the gums that they put in there to make the shake nice and thick is also affecting how you can digest the product and causing a problem for you. It's not helpful.
Yeah.
And then on the sweetness side, same, like sucralose particularly is an ingredient that does actually negatively impact like your natural gut bacteria. But it also desensitizes you to sweetness to where like, it's kind of like a nicotine or alcohol or anything where like you want more. And you're also, I don't like doing high intensity sweeteners that give your body this signal that you have had sugar, because you still trigger a response in your body. Like, people have talked about this, but like, it's very like, I like to talk about it in a more straightforward way, where if you think you had sugar, or if you have something, like if you have something bitter, like your mouth will start to like salivate. Sweetness is the same thing. So if you take something that doesn't have sugar, like a Diet Coke or something, your body still triggers this whole physiological cascade of, I just ingested sugar. Your body then figures out, I didn't actually get sugar. And now it's like looping, and it's like, I need more sugar. And so people get in this loop, and they're just like, I tasted sweetness. Your body didn't get the sugar. Now your body wants more sugar. And then you're just in this cycle. And that's like, most Americans are just in this cycle of like, I'm not getting the sugar that I need. And for a lot of people before, it was also, some people now, low fat stuff, same thing. Your body like needs fat. And if you like have this thing that like you think has fat in it, but your body doesn't get it, like your body just like craves this. And so like trying to get people out of those cycles.
Yeah. It's I love the focus on I really love how much, I mean, it's clear like your expertise on the product side, and that was a lot of like my thought is like, okay, there's the operation logistics of the business, and then there's like the actual product that's creating. And it sounds like so much of your diligence is front end, like what are we actually going to bring to market, and how is that actually put together, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to, I guess, like almost taking through like creating a product, right? So you identify these ingredients. There's like things you won't use. There's things you will use. You identify the ones you use. Now, walk me through maybe the sourcing, the packaging, the manufacturing side, and so on and so forth.
So nowadays, like Devin will talk about product, or like I'll think about something. We kind of like usually agree on something, and then like I'll give the example of like one of our favorite products. It's called D-Bloat, and that came from Devin was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa.
Classic.
Yeah, he's always been cool, So he came back down, and he like the villagers showed him this pod, and he was like, "Yo, what is that?" And then it was this giant pod, and he was trying to open it. They like cracked it open, and it's called baobab. And baobab is like naturally high in vitamin C, potassium, and fiber. And he was like, dude, this is like, they use it for like scurvy, or like you have upset stomach, or like illness. Like it's like very important to them and their tribe. And so he's like, make a product with this. And I'm like, okay. And so like he gave me, that was his input was, this is a really cool ingredient.
Got it.
There's a cool story behind it, which is
Got
like
it.
the marketing side,
Yep.
but like it is a cool ingredient. And so I was like, all right, like let me read about this. And I was like, all right, cool. It's like legit. Like there's actual studies on it. Like it's a very clean ingredient. Supply wise, I like, it's not a huge ingredient nowadays. It's like getting to be more well known, but that, you know, is basically Googling, you know, calling people, getting samples, all that kind of thing. And then it was like, well, where do we sit in the market with this? You know, and for that product, I looked at, okay, it's got great prebiotics. I want to add probiotics to it, because I've been wanting to do a probiotic product, because it's like, there's certain products that I use that I like. I'm like, yeah, this is like legit. I believe in it. So for me, part of the probiotic gap was still today, it's like, if you've looked at those products, you're like, do I buy a refrigerated one? Like this is like $1 million or $5 billion or like whatever, like what do these numbers mean? So there's a whole science side. There's all these like niches within product development science where I was like, okay, I got to understand probiotics. So for me, like the unlock to a larger market was, has to be effective, but not refrigerated. Like I don't want to be in a refrigerated box. That's like super complicated. Like part of like step back on business side for me, because I started the business with a small loan from my parents and then never took any more money. And so it was, you know, kind of like the hustler idea of like, all right, let me like take this, chop it up, sell it for a little more, buy more, chop it up, go. And so on that side of the business, was the point of that was like powders have good shelf life, because you can really lose your shirt, as people in like food business know, is like you buy fish, you don't sell it, like that's just cost you're eating. Powders, I was always comfortable with, I can buy this much, I've got typically a 2-year shelf life. I believe in myself that I can sell at least enough in that timeline, and then you have confidence because you're like, I know I can get this. And so for me on the probiotic side, I was like, I don't want to box myself into something that's got to be temperature controlled, that's very complicated, and it's also like not the reality of how people are going to use the product. Like it's just not like, even the supply chain getting it there, how do you know that it wasn't mishandled, and now you have a product that doesn't actually have live cultures, which is the probiotic, in an effective form. So efficacious, you know, mass products they work ideally, they're simple, like they're just easy, they fit in your routine, like they taste good. And so took the prebiotic, vitamin C, potassium from the baobab. So we have baobab powder, probiotic that is shelf stable and effective, and I dose that and use different strains based on like, this is going to mean these different 3 strains of it have been shown to be effective in different aspects of like gut health. They are in amounts that make sense based on like the research, and then put those 2 together and then make it taste good. And so then you add flavor to it and things like that, and a little bit of sweetness. So for me, I also thought, and still believe, like pills are less, there's no like thing around pills. Whereas like a beverage, I used to, when I was a little workout, get a chocolate protein shake after. And I would like, that's like locked in, that Pavlovian like workout. I already can taste the chocolate protein shake. And so like for me, like waking up and having like a drink that tasted orange like was very like, people used to drink orange juice or like Tang or different things. So like that was our first product, was like an orange flavored baobab prebiotic plus 3 strains of a probiotic in a product. And for me, I felt like it was different in the market. It's shelf stable, you can put it in a stick pack, it has flavor. Like there weren't still not that many drinks that are like true effective probiotic drinks. Like people are trying to do a liquid, or they're trying to do a capsule typically, but so different, like slightly different form factor. But that's like, when we look at products now, it's really just, how can we differentiate? Is there a valid market for the product? Creating a category is very, very hard. Would not recommend. So if you're like, yo, I want everyone to buy like, you know, fungi, whatever, and it's like, if no one's heard of that, like good luck. So doing a product that has a category, but saying, how can I make a product that I can stand on being, it is differentiated and better. And so I felt like that was a good example for us. And then that's kind of it. Like just making sure that if somebody said, well, how is this better than Thorne and Momentous or like whatever these brands that maybe our shopper would compare us to, I can say, this is why.
This is why, yeah.
You know, and I'll also be like, you know, if you didn't want this, you wanted that, like maybe that product makes more sense.
Yeah,
like, just be kind of straight up.
Yeah. And where do you see, where have things gone wrong or where have things gotten difficult on the supply chain side?
Ryan, who runs all that now, is fantastic. So like he's better at it than I am. A lot of it's just, you know, as your business, when it becomes a real business, you start to look at like data.
Yeah.
Like you actually have good reporting.
Yep.
For ads, you know, that's where it's like most robust, but even, you know, inventory and sales and planning and all that stuff. And all the systems gotten so much better where it's all kind of like, how are you not tracking this? Because it's all there for you now. So that side was the issue before. Like we would sell out of products because I wasn't managing inventory correctly.
Okay.
And that's like the worst thing you can do, especially nowadays. Like Amazon rewards you being in stock. You got to be in stock. And so shot myself in the foot many times on that. So that would be like the supply side thing that's complicated. Otherwise, like you should be able to manage it now. Like because the space has grown so much, like there are suppliers for almost kind of everything you want. I would say like if we use, it's not as easy as a lot of companies. Like we're doing a sleep product and I was like looking at a bunch of different forms of magnesium and like there's so much nuance to like, you know, you think about magnesium, like there's a lot of different forms of magnesium. No one really knows what any of them do. You're like, I don't know. I've heard like threonate or like glycinate or like, I don't know. Like, so getting the specific form and then even understanding that further, like I have to a lot of times look at like, how are they producing that product? And like with magnesium is like, there's elemental magnesium in a product. So you could have 100 grams of something, but it's only 10% of the actual magnesium product. So like what else is in there? And like, oftentimes like you can say the word like buffered, that means that it's buffered with another magnesium and that form might be oxide. And I'm like, I don't want to have oxide in the product because that often creates an upset in your stomach. And so if I want a higher magnesium, then I got to use more of the original. Like there's all these little calculation things that go into it. So I would say like that's more complicated because again, if you like, we buy the ingredients, but if I go to someone and say, hey, do you have a magnesium glycinate or whatever I'm looking for, they'd be like, yeah, great, here you go. And I go, okay, well, I understand that. Do you have this type? And you have to press a lot. And a lot of times I've had to go to people and say, I know that this is available. So either you're giving it to me or I'm going to keep looking. But like, there's not a option around like, if I've seen it in the market or I've seen the ability of it to occur, you know, like the last thing I'll reference will be like, an iron product we do. Like most iron supplements are like salts, like iron-based salts. They all upset your stomach because it absorbs via a different pathway. You can also, iron is in your blood. So you can actually take blood from like cows or pigs or different things like that and pull the iron out of that. And that means it's a true, like it's actual like hematocrit iron. And then you can absorb that like you would like normal iron from like food. And that's very different. And so like, there's like one or two producers in the world maybe of that product. Wow. And so like that niche area of being like a baobab, it's like, you know, if you get it, we get it organic from Africa. Like that's very different from like it's more like these very small nuanced things that most people don't care about, but a lot of times it's your really good customers care about. Because like the mass person is gonna be like, I don't know, baobab sounds cool, like whatever. But like the good customers, that's where like early on it was like I had crazy LTVs because like if you found the products and you're a healthier person, you really started to like dig on stuff. You're like, oh, that's cool. Like I think like Sweet Greens and brands like that now, they're doing seed oil, no seed oil, and stuff like that. Like that's cool. They're like, you're building like a much stronger customer lock-in because they're not just like, we're just like a salad that looks pretty. It's like there's like real meat behind like what they're doing, which is cool. So I think like that's still like an evolving thing. It's still not mass. Like, you know, even people that eat at Sweet Green, even though our peer group is probably all about like seed oils. Like I would guess if you surveyed customers that come into Sweet Greens about seed oils, I would guess 70% at least have never even heard of that. You know, but in our world it's like, oh, of course. But like, so like, that's like, that's like niche shit.
So how many, one of the things I heard in one of your other podcasts is like, which I think we'd all agree is ideally, you know, perfect business is like one product, one SKU. You scale the hell out of it, right? You guys have a lot of products and a lot of SKUs. so when it comes, I'm thinking of the supply, like the supply chain, like
yeah.
how many different suppliers, how many
A
different
lot.
co-packing, like what part of the process did you have to, or you still want to maybe bring in house? Like where's your mind go with that,
Cool.
on that side of it?
Yeah. The ingredient suppliers, there's a very long list.
Okay.
So that's the most like complex. Then you obviously have all the packaging for each product, and that's complex because there's like, maybe we have a debloat and it comes in jar, you know, and like that's like the fun part of the business. You break down all the components, like glass jar, top, label, product inside versus scoop, box, sticker on box. Like there's like 17 components of that one SKU, and that's one SKU with 6 different flavors, and then 3 additional packaging formats. So now I'm talking about, like, it starts to be that crazy matrix of like there's like 60 items that go into just the debloat category that are unique that we have to like manage. And so Ryan does
horrible.
That. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Like physical, like bits are really cool. Atoms are like, you know, it's like more difficult. But so the ingredient and the packaging are the most complex, where the then filter function is around format. So like we do pills, we do powders, bars.
Got it.
That's it. 3. And so like, and the bar supply chain is like very verticalized. Okay. Like it's all kind of in one system. The powders are, some go in pills, some don't. So you have to pull the branches together at some point. Like if we did RTDs and all these different things, like then it gets mega complex. But you know, the reality is like cost wise, stability wise, again, like all that stuff is managed by being in shelf stable formats is really important for us. So like, yeah, packaging, ingredient, very complex. Then, but you have a big filter on the powders
and I guess like when you're looking at, okay, you're looking at all the different SKUs, you're looking at all the different products, the business as a whole. Talk to me about the data and the KPI side. What obviously there's the basics of, you know, EBITDA and so on, but what are maybe the data points that that investors or the general public may focus on and think are important, but you would maybe emphasize other data points that are arguably more important and tell like a better story of where the business is heading.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Investors are growth, first order profitability, EBITDA, and then like other dumb vanity shit.
Yeah.
Do I like the product, or like have I seen it somewhere, or like somebody I think is cool told me about it, which is all valid shit. But and then what I would say is like, yeah, kind of like we were talking about earlier, like a lot of people that can sell products that aren't necessarily the best because they really know how to market. And so that's where it's more about, and this kind of tied to your other question around like, you do have a lot of products versus like an ideal business is one SKU. It's really hard to have. So investors also like that. They're like, well, you got a lot of products. And so I got negative feedback for many years on, you have too many products, proteins are stupid, not good margin. And I'm like, well, first of all, I didn't start the business with like, I care most about margin. I was like, I want to make products for myself, number one. And most people don't even go into it like that. Like there's a lot of brands now that go, amazing margin, hot category, let's jam it. Yeah. Which I respect. That's fine. Yeah. Like, make your money. But for me, I was like, no, this is a problem I want to solve. I will figure out the business around it. Yeah. Versus like business. So, the issue I had with one SKU was it's hard it can get rocket ship growth, easier to manage, but it can be very spiky. Like we even seen it in, I would say like, here's like a more interesting kind of relationship is, I would say the powdered pre-workout business, which used to be a huge category, especially when we go back to like Crunchy Moms and like bodybuilding, like GNC, ton of people cranked pre-workouts and stuff. That was huge category.
The C4 boom.
Yeah. C4, amazing business. What are they in now? RTDs. I think the powder pre-workout business is kind of fucked because like the infrastructure around beverages and the consumer buying preferences, and like you see especially like TikTok Shop or different places, like people are slanging RTDs for like, 24 pack for like $30 or whatever. It's just customer acquisition and blah, blah, blah. But like that's like what you used to sell powder for. Obviously it's better to sell powder, but they've also gotten the volume up on the beverages where like it can kind of almost work. Yeah. And so why would I ever buy, for the average customer, why would I ever buy a powder when I can literally just get a cold drink out of my fridge and like not scooping powder? Like it's easy. Like, you know, efficiency and ease are huge in America, especially. So it's like, that's an interesting one where that category is kind of different. So sorry, like the broad base I liked because one, I was creating products to solve different problems, I believe. And then tied to your question about what do investors care about, to me, it was like, you can have one product, and if that's all you're known for, if that becomes less trendy, I would say like mushroom coffee, I don't know, like kind of peaked in my mind a lot. I see a lot of mushroom forward brands that are now moving into regular coffee when the whole thing used to be like, coffee's bad. And I'm like, well, now you actually have a whole line of coffee. And like maybe you're putting a little tweak on it, but like, okay, so that's tough if you go with those single SKUs, and you also don't build a brand that you have license to do anything else, which can be cool. Like you can build a brand, like there's some Human is like a beet based company, and that's a mostly good product, and they own that vertical, and that can be a huge business, but it just has to be a big enough vertical, and it has to like kind of have staying power, which often means it has to actually work, because I think there is validity in the market where end of the day the brands that really stick around like do actually work, which is kind of nice to see. But most brands, so the portfolio approach where it's like a true brand where you trust the product, because I was always trying to be like the next generation of like a Thorn or something like that for like younger generation. And then all right, so broad portfolio, brand building, not always about margin. What investors don't look at so much is kind of like,
and what do they not look at? And like
they should
LTV,
customer acquisition cost. Are you able to cross sell other products to that customer? Consumable, like is there something where like they're going to get tired of it? Like, you know, we have customers that stop using one product, but then we introduce a new flavor, or they find a new product that they like, or like creatine, for example, like has gotten very popular, especially among women. Maybe they originally were buying like collagen product for us. Now they have creatine and they're already part of our brand. So like you've already, in simple terms, like paid to acquire that customer either through social or whatever. Now they're within our brand, and like they're going to cross shop, increase their LTV, like all that stuff starts to matter. Where if you have one single product, if you get out marketed by another person, if you're a greens powder and you have one greens powder and somebody else is dominating that space, or just like gets hot, like why am I going to stick with your greens powder? Especially if it doesn't work. And so that's the biggest thing, is like I would be very concerned about brands. And also I think quality of the customer really matters. So you can be super spiky among a highly engaged social audience, but they're also not as good of a customer. Like imagine you have a TikTok shop, and all right, so here's a good example, like get you engaged, is like you're now like a luxury consumer of a lot of things. And so if something like, you know, I think we've listened to a lot of podcasts where guys were like, I started to make it when I would buy something from Amazon and I just didn't have to return it. And I was like, fuck it, I'm not going to return it. That's not worth my time. So like the higher you go up the luxury scale, most customers are just going to be like, like if I like miss a flight or whatever, I'm like, I don't want to call the airline. If I can't cancel it online, I'm out a couple $100, whatever. If you're on the lower end of the spectrum, and you can, just people are straight scamming you. Package didn't arrive.
BS, it did.
Send me another one. You know, like, or they're just like, like I just didn't like it. And you're like, okay, like why did you subscribe and buy 5? Like help me. And so like you are selling to this customer that is trying a bunch of stuff. They're easier to market to. There's more scamming, there's less brand affinity and all that stuff, versus if somebody's committing to like a higher price point product, they're more invested in the brand. Like they've made more of a conscious decision. Like for me, like if we're walking along, we see some like beverage, I'm like, it's like $2. Like I'll just try it. I have so like you're able to run, especially if it's well marketed, you're able to run insane customer acquisition, but there's zero retention there. And you're like, you're in a constant marketing battle. Whereas like if you make slightly more of a niche product at a higher end customer, that's going to lock in. So like even that beet company that I talked to, they're marketing heart health. If you're under 30, you give a fuck about heart health. Honestly. And so like, who are they acquiring? They're acquiring older, which very rarely doesn't mean wealthier customers that have thought about it more, are less influenced by TikTok marketing. And so it's like a customer is actually going to stick around because they've been like, they've often searched it out, or they've just heard from the doctor or whatever that like heart health is important. And they're like, that starts to be that longevity piece. So like a lot of people are interested in longevity because like if you start talking about longevity and stuff, you're talking to older customer, $1,000 price point is like, okay. You talk to people under $30,000, you're like, are you kidding me? Like I want $29.99, $24.99. Like, so you're in this. That's I think the biggest issue is like, do you actually believe in that? And there's very few brands that can build. I like brands that can start at the top and you can eventually get more mass, and you can also like segment your SKUs better. Where it's like, even I think Nike's like masterful with like, Nike does ultra high-end experiences, ultra high-end products, like super expensive, like Nike Lab or different things where it's like very niche. And then they also do like outlet stores. But the products are not the same. And people kind of know that. But you're still just like, you're able to engage with the brand. So that's like a very mature brand where you're able to engage with the whole audience. But like, I'm very uncomfortable investing in a super spiky brand driven by like a creator, because I don't believe that there's retention. Obviously, you have that huge key man risk. Which investors are getting burned on that. People see that. They understand that. It's pretty simple. But I think it's about what customer are you acquiring. Like, I'd be very uncomfortable with the lower end price point.
I mean, we're value investors. Like, one of the things that we're really looking at is like how reliable, stable are the cash flows, and like, is the customer? Because like you said, it can look good on paper and so on, but if you like click more into it, like does this seem very hard to move, or is it very spiky and something could happen with it? And I think that's actually a really interesting point. I guess it's like if you were looking at another business in the space, what like are those kind of the data points, like the metrics that you would be looking past, like, you know, past top line, bottom line, and so on? Like, are those the data points you would really like hone in on, like for you yourself, if you were analyzing them?
Yeah, I would look at a lot around average order value, returns, discounting. Discounting is the biggest. That talks to the same thing. If you have a product you see, I think America has, you know, the general like, I like to save 10%. Like I'll buy a $500 shirt or something like that, but like I'll still Google 5 seconds for a code. Is there a code for this? You know, why not? Like, but that customer, like once you start to discount, you're always discounting your brand. You're devaluing it. Like there's no way to do that. So if I see a brand offering, for us, our average discount is 10%. Like flat. Yeah, like we're never giving out anything more than like 10%. We give 15% on subscription. Some products at 20, like, but that's very rare. So our average discount is around 11% blended across everything.
I see. Okay.
Very few supplement brands, very few brands in general don't discount to a significant degree. We have 2 sales a year. So I think like I would never personally invest in a business where I saw them discounting regularly. That's like you're chasing growth.
I see.
Like that's a short-term game. Like I don't think more of your brand. You think about luxury brands, like they don't discount, and then if they do, it's in this like sample sale thing where it's like, dude, like I'm not actually going to get the product. So that's, I would say discounting is that would be like gate one for me is like, how often do you run sales? Like, do you run sales? You're out of here. Like we have 2 sales a year, and that's it. One is Black Friday. Everyone participates kind of in that. But I think it's also, you can build really strong brands that don't do that. Then we have Devin's birthday. We do a fun sale. But like, it's not part of the brand. And people like, once you start in that cycle of discounting and people waiting on sales, like you just see
tells a story.
It's just sad. And so that's the biggest one.
Yeah, that's good. What about on the cost structure? What can you share on the cost structure of the business, like overall?
I mean, like high level, like headcount being low, D2C, all that stuff is like where I was like, those are the major costs. And then from like product margin, like speaking to investors and things, like, again, I didn't build the business for to really even sell it initially or to make it friendly to investors. I was solving a problem. So proteins are not as high margin. I would say end of the day, investors want kind of a fully baked, all costs included, 50% margin.
Got it.
Which in supplements, there's a lot of brands like, you know, electrolyte type driven brands that can have 90+% margin.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's salt.
Yeah, literally.
Very cheap. Like, yeah, like one thing I always say is like air, water, salt, and then sugar are like the best things to sell. Super cheap. You know, so like there's a lot of brands that
sell that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're selling that. So yeah, like for us, we aim to get to that kind of fully blended, every cost baked in, you're at 50% margin. That's a great place to end up.
Okay.
When I think about new products, like until you get to scale, like if you were starting a business, I would really try to be like, don't go in at 50 because there's going to be a lot of costs you don't understand and all that. Like I would tell people trying to get to like, try to come out of the gate at like at least like a 70% margin.
Got it.
Because then you're going to have chargebacks and loss and all these different things that you just don't think about. And maybe you'll end up at 50. So that's like high level where I would try to be, is like for investors, you got to be 50% or above. For if you're new and starting a business, try to hit something in the 70s. Know that there are many products out there that are like 90%. But again, like those oftentimes, because it's 90%, you're like, oh, let me run like a 37% off, 40% off sale. And so like when you see those brands constantly do that, like I'm uncomfortable with those businesses. Yeah. They can put up insane numbers, but you're acquiring a really low quality customer because they're buying on price. Yeah. I never want to build a brand where people buy on price necessarily. Yeah. Like within a range, but like that should not be the main driver. It's like, I want the product. That's a brand, because like these two things are the same, but like if this has a brand on it, like I'm going to pay more, even if you know they're the same. It's just like,
100%. And is the like, okay, so I understand kind of the outlook on the percentages there. How have you guys had to hedge against like potential economic changes, inflation, consumer spending, interest rates? How much does that impact you guys?
Yeah, I would say like kind of goes back to our product side, where like I'm not trying to make, for me it was again solving problems. I'm not like making exotic products oftentimes, and that's also why I like the portfolio. Is kind of like, it's like the stocks and bonds is not like the right analogy, but it's like this really steady movers. I've believed since day one, continue to believe in protein. It's a hotter category now, but like everyone is going to buy protein forever. I think creatine is now probably fitting in that thing. You start to get the more like herbal or like whatever, it's kind of like nice to haves. So like for us, like consumer spending, again, you talked about with your kind of looking at customers, like what is the kind of quality of their, it's like a business, quality of revenue or like quality of like consistency of earning potential and things like that. Yep. The people who get hurt with economic fluctuations is the lower half.
Yes.
So like I want to be selling to mid upper.
Yeah.
So that's really how you hedge, is like, again, if you're doing $24.99 TikTok shop flash sale product, like that customer is very spiky with their ability to spend. And then you're at the whim of other things. Luxury markets typically don't get hit. So like I like to be in this mid, where I would call us like a premium brand, but there's like super premium, and then there's like kind of middle of the road, where premium, you may have people, if times are good, trade up. Yeah. And you have, if times are bad, if they want to, even if people have the money, sometimes they just, they have a feeling you want to trade down. But I'm still like, I'm catching kind of customers from either end. Whereas like if you're near the bottom, there is no other part. Like you're just, the bottom falls out of the bottom kind of thing.
So you're kind of hedging based off of like the hedging is almost blended within the brand itself and what customers you're going after in a sense, right?
100%.
And what are there any, I mean, there must be. So what are the products or brands that are doing like interesting things to you and things you look at and you're like, you respect what they're doing, whether they're much bigger, much smaller? Like is there one or two that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be like honest and not at all a hater. Like, I think it's Daily Dose in town, or I think that's the name of it. They crank. Yeah. Crazy. It's kind of breaks all the rules of what I was saying around like brands that I feel comfortable with, but like I can't argue with people's numbers, man. Yeah. They do numbers and it's crazy. So like mad respect, because like, the marketing stuff is not easy. Like one of the things I've always balanced in the business is it's kind of like some people have to work more and some people have to work less. Like if you're Tiger Woods, you can just hit the ball once and you're out. Cool. And if you're, grinding on accounting for whatever, like, sorry, like, that's how it is. So like they are amazing at marketing. And I can't speak to the product. I think it's probably a good product, but like they're doing it. Yeah. And like, so that's those brands like that, where there's like, I'm like, it's maybe not, again, not speaking to them, but like there's people who are selling non-differentiated products, but they're selling so much of them. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, like Goalie is a brand that does insane numbers and has products where I'm like, I don't, from a scientific standpoint, I can't look at that and say like, all right, that's solid, but like unbelievable marketing, unbelievable. So I think that's the most interesting to me, from like a product efficacy side. Like I think we're doing the best, honestly. But from the marketing side, like, and I think like, trying to think if anyone else has like moved categories or done anything really interesting. But no, I would say the people that are like, it fascinates me because it's a little bit less of my area, so I'm less critical and more impressed, is like the people that are doing some marketing things where like they are going 0 to hundreds of millions of dollars and they can keep that going for some amount of time and like throwing off real EBITDA. Yeah. That's like, you really can't argue with it.
Right.
So like that's,
Where do you see the industry going in the next 5 years?
I think it'll continue to grow. I believe in like, for us, I believe in the, it'll continue to grow in the female customer. And I think it'll start to bleed more into beauty. I think beauty. So I think like one trend that people talk about is like men will start to get more into beauty, which I agree with. But I think women will there'll be more nutrition impacting beauty. Like we see it just from literally products we have where people are like, oh, the like gut health product or a liver product actually help my skin. And once people start to really, because that, I believe the truth eventually comes through where like it does actually work. Yeah. And so regardless of trend, it will actually start to get organic, like word of mouth. And so I think you'll see a lot of growth in the quote kind of traditional supplement space be in the beauty area, because it does actually impact beauty. Like if you eat a certain way, it affects how your skin is. Yes. You know, and people will start to make that connection. Yeah, that's like the biggest trend I see.
Yeah. Cool. We're getting about time here. I have like there's like some other quick hit ones, but how we doing?
Good. Yeah. Hit it.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. So I actually want to get into like, I think the coolest thing with this business is like you are like you are a walking example of like the brand, right? You're super fit, super healthy, and so on. So I'd like to maybe unpack a little bit some of these quick hit questions on like your lifestyle and how like practically like how you actually utilize things. So what, like, first off, what do you think are the main data points that you'd suggest people to track daily as far as health, or what are the ones that you track?
Yeah, I don't track any, unfortunately.
Don't track anything. Okay.
Like I think that's
Maybe,
go ahead. But I'll spend too much time on, a lot of smart people gravitate towards data. That's how your brain's structured, and you do get good information from it. I think it's a good learning tool. So I'll back that up by saying I think like using levels. Shout out to like Josh and those guys. Like that's a great diagnostic tool. Fantastic. If you fucking have no idea what you're doing with your nutrition, what are levels, and be like, oh, I didn't know that like very basic stuff. I didn't know if I eat rice, it's the same as eating. It's actually worse for my blood sugar than eating ice cream. Like, why is that? Okay, it doesn't have any fat in it. Well, what if I have like rice with like meat? Now your blood sugar doesn't go crazy and your energy is better. So like having a very simple diagnostic, I don't know on the sleep side. I think I have these built in just like life habits, like work out every day, drink enough water, you know, like those things like keep you kind of regular. So I don't.
So maybe tell me. Yeah. We'll circle back to this. What's your routine?
Yeah. Cool. Wake up like 5, somewhere in the 5:30 range. I still do like a bulletproof coffee.
Oh, cool.
I've tried to look at those products, but they're not powders. Too difficult. Not just bad economics for me. So MCT oil, cinnamon, butter, black coffee. That's really great for me. Like at one point I started training a lot, was trying to get super big. Everyone, I think guys like to get bulky at some point. And I was like, yo, I'm actually kind of getting fat. So I was like, I got to change this up. So I was like, like I was in this endurance mode of like where you eat all the time. So it was, this is very early on before people were like fasting. And fasting I don't recommend for a ton of people. Especially don't recommend for women. But for guys, like it can be helpful where if I have, and fat is super satiating. So like you feel full. So if I have a bulletproof coffee in the morning, like my energy level is good. It actually like blunts that caffeine spike for me. So I used to drink ungodly amounts of coffee. Like everyone's kind of gone through that phase, but like I was drinking so much coffee. And once I started having Bulletproof, I didn't have the spikiness. It was very even. So it's partially like I feel full. It's easier on my stomach. I'm sensitive to acids and things. I don't eat like tomato sauce or like eggplant, nightshades and stuff. So Bulletproof coffee when I wake up.
So within like right away.
Yeah. I'm tired.
What's like your take on the like you should wait,
I don't know. I like to jam it.
Okay.
I'm ready to go.
Okay. Cool.
I'm like locked in with like Tim Dillon podcast or something and like coffee and I'm just like, let's go.
You're rolling.
I'm fully like checking emails. Yeah, that's like go to New York. If you have like a lack of motivation or whatever, go to New York and just get like run over a bunch and like be like, yo, I gotta go. And so yeah, Bulletproof coffee. Then I'll wake up, make my wife some food. I'll have like sourdough toast with like a bunch of butter, some honey, cinnamon. So like a lot of fat. Like that's been super huge for me. I would say in general, people also don't just eat enough saturated fat, good quality fats. And there is nuance to all that. It's like, am I buying Pepperidge Farm bread and am I using shitty butter and am I doing shitty? It's like, no, man, I'm getting like really good, heritage, kind of grain sourdough toasted in the oven. Good quality honey, cinnamon, like all those little nuanced things do matter a lot. It adds up. And so Bulletproof coffee, toast with butter, cinnamon, all that, honey, and then go for a walk with the dogs, come back. I'll eat like a big bowl. I eat like very consistently 2 pounds of beef every day. Wow. That's like the main thing. Like it gets all the protein I need.
How lean?
So I like fatty meat more so for steak. I used to make burgers all the time. More simple than burgers is just a bunch of beef in a pan, stir fried, and I eat that or whatever. Like just literally cook it. And I don't like it to be super fatty, and then I just like my stomach kind of feels off. So like probably ends up being 85, 15 or something. Eat a pound of beef, then I go work. At work I'll like have one more coffee, just black. I'll usually have like, depending on how I'm feeling or what I did for a workout or whatever, I'll like have a croissant or like some kind of thing during the day. Because I am in that like, you do burn calories with your brain, but I'm like working, very switched on. I want coffee and I want a little bit of carbs. So just like I'm going. Got it. And then I basically don't have anything until like, so, I'll have that beef at like 8:39. I won't have dinner until typically around 8. And so the only thing in between will be like that one croissant or something. Wow. Yeah. And so I think that's personally for me worked really well because your body does adapt to managing its blood sugar if you're not constantly feeding it. So when I was running a lot, I was eating all the time because I was hungry. I was burning a lot of calories. Like if I'm sedentary, like I'm good. Like if you told me that you can't eat the rest of the day, I'd be like, all right, fine. Like that's like, okay. And I think you do want to get to that point more so again for guys, but like the flexibility, like, part of being fit or something is like a little bit of that like durability aspect where I'm like, how good are you if your systems are like, oh man, if I don't have this one thing, like I'm fucked. You need to be like, business blew up. Like I'm just going to not eat. I got to work. Yeah. And so like, that's important, but the fat really does help with that. So like I load that front part of my day. I have a lot of calories from fat and then a little bit of carbs. Cause if you just eat fat, it's probably gonna throw your stomach off. Yeah. So like, get something in there, protein. And then I have a big gap during the day and I get kind of sharper throughout the day because I always felt, even like we talked about, like I used to eat like crap and I would be really sleepy after I ate. Now I eat and I don't feel sleepy, but I also during the day, if I start to get a little tired, if I haven't eaten, I'm never tired if I haven't eaten. Like I don't know if you ever tried that. If you ever tried to go to bed hungry, hard to do. Oh yeah. Like your body's just like, yo, I'm on because I haven't eaten. Yeah. And so I use that to my advantage where not to a stressful point for my system, but I feel like not eating during that day keeps that like from 2 to like 6 when I'm working, keeps me on because like I'm starting to get hungry. So I'm definitely not getting tired, And then I have a big beef at dinner. I eat blackberries for like kind of my sweetness after dinner type thing. Love blueberries, blackberries, berries in general. And then sometimes I'll have like arugula salad with some cheese and stuff, but it's basically just more beef, big steak if I got time or whatever. And then I'll eat some like potatoes or rice. I eat pizza, but cheese and bread is basically what it is. And again, like I'm not going to Pizza Hut. I'm like getting like a good quality pizza. Yeah. It's like you go to Europe and you eat pizza versus shitty Domino. Yeah.
So when you exercising?
Evening. So it's like I like to exercise. So it's like my brain gets to turn off. I'm like usually progressively getting more annoyed during the day.
Yeah.
And then like I get to work out and I'm like, cool. I've like exerted some of that like tension.
Got it.
And I'm like chill now. And
Got
I go
it.
home and like chill.
What okay, so and also like you've been an athlete, you've been exercising healthy your whole life, so like your routine, I'll disclaimer, like it varies, right? Like you're at a much more mature stage with it. What are the supplements and products you're taking on a daily basis? So I got the bulletproof coffee. What else?
Yeah, I would say in general, like you can actually hit and I tell everyone this, I have a supplement company, but I say if you can get everything you need through whole foods, do it. Like the word supplement is supplement. It means to supplement your diet. I'm not trying to get you to replace. If you have time to make yourself a steak, I started making protein powders because I didn't have time. I was doing dual degrees. I was training like 4 hours a day. I could not get enough calories and protein in. And for a lot of people, it's just like, you're not at that stage in your life. Like you're a younger dude. You're like basically degenerate.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm just going to like, I want to play video games. I'm not going to make myself real food. So if you're like, I'm just going to eat Tostinos or whatever, like you probably need a protein shake.
Yeah.
So like it's for those people. So for myself, I use a probiotic. I use our probiotic every day. That I think in general truly does like help immunity, just like general gut health and digestion. I use, if I feel at all like I'm going to be sick or I'm like kind of been traveling or whatever, zinc.
Okay.
I'd say those are like the big ones. Like so I'll explain why. Like if you're eating 2 pounds of beef every day, you're getting over 5 grams of creatine from the beef.
Right.
So like I don't need additional creatine. If I wasn't eating beef, I would have creatine. Protein, same thing. I would use protein. I'd say the other stuff was more like when I was training a lot, like I would use different kind of like blood flow, like a beet product for like blood flow. Like if I'm truly trying to like performance based, I just haven't tried to be like, as soon as I stop competing, I'm like, it's not that serious. Like, so like I'm not trying to like go crazy in the gym.
Yep.
So I would use a lot of those products for like longer workouts. You just have carbohydrate drink and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, really it's the gut health debloat product and zinc. Yeah. The iron, we have like iron, D3, K2. Those I use if I'm like not getting enough sun. So it's like more like seasonal and like environment based
off of how you're. Yeah. Would you, like, suggestion for other people, would you go the route of like, hey, get your blood work done, see where you're high, see where you're low, and then adjust accordingly? Or is there like blanket stuff that you would suggest to people?
I'd say most people aren't going to do that. I would say I would take protein. I would just have a shake either in the morning or in the evening, at least. And then I would say have creatine. And then I would say take 5,000 units vitamin D with K2. And then I would say like a probiotic. You could take a B12 if you're like, I'm not that price sensitive and it's not that much more money. And then I would probably, if they're not eating red meat like 3 or 4 times a week, I would say take our iron product. And that would be like, those are the basics. Like the majority, like we made those vitamins because I said, I don't want to make vitamins just for making vitamins. What are the majority of people in America deficient in? And like, we have those vitamins.
I see.
And so like, I can say with 90% certainty, you're deficient in one of those. And I could say with 70% certainty, you're deficient in probably all of them.
Yeah.
And especially if you're like not like you're obviously healthy and fit and you care about that, but the average American, like they're deficient in all 3 of those things.
Okay, cool. Dude, this has been epic. I like, first off, it's really cool. I literally just like reached out to you just like randomly. I saw we had some like connections from the same city and like we hopped on a call. You were like super nice, super transparent and so on. I just want to appreciate like the openness, and then like we hadn't even met before today, and so you willing to like come do this podcast in person. I always love the Gainesville connection, and I've been a Promix supporter, and there's a couple of those products that I always use. So thank you for that. But yeah, just want to tell you appreciate what you've built so far and this new friendship. Is there anything else you're passionate about that you want to share with the listeners, or just with me?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, like seeing somebody else make it from Gainesville is cool. I think that's kind of rare. I hope like Gainesville continues to be great.
100%.
But yeah, I think outside of that, like I love fitness still. I love gyms. I think I'll do a gym in the future. Like I think for a lot of people, you know, I enjoy listening to business stuff, and I would say high level, like you got to find what you're good at. You got to find what you don't like, then find what you're good at and do that. And like, I would encourage everyone to, even if you're like, dude, well, like really want to paint or whatever, like if you can't see that actually monetizing, like do something that gets you a base. That was always in my head, even if it wasn't to be as successful as fortunately I need a base, because I don't want to like be struggling and doing stuff that I don't have control over my time. So like I encourage everyone that's like interested in business, like find the thing that you think you can make work and do it so that you can create a base, and then you can turn that into something that you are really proud of or like, or you can use that base to then go off and do like, you know, be a farmer or be a painter or like something where it's like a little less linear of an approach. And I think like businesses, it's not that risky if you really think about it. So like that's always been like, you know, people are like, you gotta have a risk profile for whatever. I'm like, I've never felt like it was like not gonna happen, or like being from Gainesville, like last like funny thing on that is like, if you haven't been to Florida, go to Florida. It's like you can live in a really nice place for not that much money. Yeah. And it's like that was always my backup fall plan was like, I can go back home and live like in my hometown, and like it's pretty good there. Yeah. And it's not that hard to like stay, like have a good life. Yeah. So it's like, why not try to do stuff? Because like if that's your worst case, and I encourage, when I lived in New York, I was like, do y'all know you can live in Florida? And people during COVID figured that out, but I'm like, what are you doing up here? Like unless you're balling, like New York is tough. Yeah. It's very tough. It's a great place to get your ass kicked and like learn and get motivated, but like go live in Florida if you like want to chill. Yeah. So like that's my like
last few ones. What are you most fired up about the next few quarters?
Hitting our numbers. I want to keep our PE friends, Payne Schwartz, they're great partners. I want to keep them happy. Like I believe in our business, and it's cool to like see it grow and have a great team. Cool. So having our team be happy, hitting our numbers. We got some really cool products coming out that I think are just awesome. So that's cool.
Love it. And last one for you. You have a new kid.
Yeah.
What is, I'm always curious from people, what is like the most important principle in your mind about just life overall that you will want to teach your kid?
Well, one, have kids, especially if you have a good partner. It's not as hard as you think. If you run a business, having a kid, most people, an aside, is like, obviously the average person, and take it what it is like not really pushing themselves very hard. If you're in this business, you're listening to this podcast and all that kind of stuff, like you're probably someone who like pushes themselves and like wants more for yourself. Having a kid is not going to be the hardest thing you do. So have a kid, because I think it's a good idea, because you're a good person and you should, you know, like, and then for like what they should know is like, you really just can't, I think sports was a huge influence on my life, and my coaches very much shaped who I am. My parents are super chill. I'm kind of chill, but I'm also like, I'm going to get it done. Yeah. And that's like a sport mentality. So I really encourage people to play sports for that reason. Like it's about being a professional. You show up. I don't care what happened. You do your job. You got to do that for your team. You got to do it for yourself. You got to execute. But yeah, I think the main thing is just like, be a professional, do your job. Don't make excuses, full accountability and ownership. And you just can't really like quit. Like you will get there. I've definitely had ups and downs in the business, and I was like, what am I doing or whatever. But like, you just got to keep trying. Like you like what, so like, yeah, you can figure it out. Like you'll just figure it out and surround yourself with really good people. Like that changed my whole life. Being a trainer, working with clients that were successful, completely changed my frame. Grew up in Gainesville. We had an idea of what success was. And then each of us were able to get out of that bubble in some way and go, oh my God, like I didn't even, it's like you literally discovering the internet. You're like, I didn't even know that these were options. These are options. My whole world existed in this tiny box. And for many people, they literally don't know. You're just like, I didn't even, it's like prompting AIs. Yeah. If you don't even know the prompts, like, what are you going to do? Yeah. Like, you can't even ask the question. So I think exposure, and that's why, like, if you don't live in a big city, go live in a big city, because you got to be around people. That proximity matters. Like going to New York, I just was like, oh, like, there's a million ways to make money. Yeah. There's a million careers. There's happy people. There's unhappy people. Like, it just completely broke your frame around, like, you can have whatever kind of life you want. So even if you end up not wanting that, you need to be exposed to it just so you know, like, what question to ask.
Getting out of your zip code is a big one.
Yeah, huge.
Hell yeah, man. Where can people find you, follow along with the journey and the work?
I repost my wife who posts pictures, but social media, Albert Matheny. hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to help, especially happy to help or talk or whatever if you're from Gainesville.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks,
Awesome,
man.
dude.
That was great.
Cheers, brother. This is
Appreciate
awesome.
it. Thank you.